One of the big games in Week 6 of the high school football season will feature the Catoctin Cougars, who travel to Walkersville High School to take on the Lions. And here to talk about the game and all things Frederick County football is the head coach of the Walkersville Lions, Joe Polis. Welcome in, Coach.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We didn't have you on before the season, and we wanted to, so glad we're able to make this work now. It's kind of hard to believe the season's we're past the midway point of the 9-week season, right?
Yeah, time really flies. I mean, it feels like just yesterday the season was getting started and how we're halfway through October.
Right. You guys are 4-1 right now?
Yes, 4-1.
How do you think the season has gone so far?
So far, I think the season's been great for us. We had a tough loss at Linganore last week.
But you thought you held your own in that one.
We felt like we held our own. They're definitely a great team, but we also feel like we had some opportunities to make some big plays, and we just didn't make them. So we've been working all week, just trying to get better, trying to iron out our identity as a team, and just get ready for the stretch run of the season.
What have you really liked so far?
So far, I mean, I love our defense. I think those guys play hard. We're very fast on that side of the ball. Offensively, we've mixed in some play action passes, thrown the ball a little bit more this year, and also a little bit more effectively than we had, especially last year. We got 3 great running backs that we rotate in: Josiah Jones, Mark Merica, and Josue Longa. Nick Edwards has done a great job at fullback. A couple other guys, Nate Wolf and Devin Bruner, rotating in there.
It looks like a typical Walkersville team. I mean, you guys, when you're at your best, you typically always have 3 or 4 really good backs, could pass the ball a little bit, play really good defense. I mean, it seems like the DNA of your good teams is there with this group.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. I think we do have the blueprint or framework to continue to have an outstanding season. I think we just need a little bit more experience, especially big game experience. And last Friday at Linganore, it was a big crowd, great atmosphere. I think we grew up a lot as a team that night.
Yeah, you guys are number 1 in the 2A West region right now, and that's a region that often produces, when you look at the Damascuses, when you look at the Middletowns, when you look at the Oakdales, when you look at you guys back in 2016, it often produces a state champion.
Yeah, it's a tough region. Definitely, the history of the region, it's been great. I don't think this year is any different. If you look at a couple of teams, you do have losses. There's not one standout team. So, 8 of the 11 get into playoffs. And I think, once it's all said and done, whoever's playing the best at the end is going to win that region.
Well, why do you think this region has produced so many state champions? What is it about it? Can you explain?
Well, I think especially from 2A, you look at Frederick County football. I mean, it is outstanding. It's very well known in the state. If you're a 2A team and you can, survive games against some of the bigger schools, Linganore, TJ was very strong for a while, Tuscarora. You go through games with Oakdale and Middletown and, Urbana, you'll be ready for the playoffs.
All right. What needs to get a little better? What haven't you liked as much so far this season?
For our team?
Yeah.
I would say some consistency, making sure that we execute all the time. We hurt ourselves against Linganore with some mental mistakes, some really costly penalties, things like that. Just executing our style of football for 4 quarters.
How would you describe this group to someone if they showed up at practice one day and said, "Hey, tell me about your team, Coach"? How would you describe this group?
I mean, we really like our team. I mean, all of our coaches, we have a great coaching staff. They're hardworking. I think we're a pretty tight-knit unit. The guys also, when we practice, it's fun. The guys will laugh and joke around at the right time and then get down to business when they're supposed to. So it's been, practice has been fun. They go by quick. It's just a great group of guys to work with.
This group has been together for a few years too. Maybe not like your state championship group that was together for most all of youth football too. But this group has been together for a while. It seems.
Right. There is a core group of those kids, probably 6 or 8 of them that have played together since they were small. They've come up together. They're very close. A lot of them have really improved through weight rooms, summer workouts, and they're all those guys are really contributing this year.
Your quarterback is a junior, right?
Quarterback Andrew Stroke is a junior.
Right. He played a little bit last year, but this is his first full season of really being a varsity starter.
Right, absolutely. He played in 3 games, actually 3 big games against Linganore, Linganore, Oakdale, and Middletown.
Yeah,
And,
three like state
right.
caliber teams. There.
Right, and we just asked him to kind of manage the game, and mostly was handing the ball off and that kind of stuff. So this is really his first year of playing the quarterback position full time, throwing the ball, doing all the stuff, and he's played very well so far early on. Had a huge game there week 1 against Tuscarora.
I was going to say third and long in the second half there. The game's on the line, and he dropped back and put the ball right on the money. I believe it was to Jay Cass for the game-winning touchdown. A really impressive throw.
Absolutely.
For a first-year starter.
Yeah, absolutely. And we started that game really strong, and we're in control. We lost our focus, had some miscues. Tuscarora's very athletic. They came storming back, and then, to our guys' credit, they had the composure to pull it together and then make that one last great play at the end, and then our defense held them.
I mean, the thing that struck me about that game was right away you guys answered the bell, and you won a close game. You pulled out a game that you might not have won the year before when you were a little more inexperienced.
Right. We absolutely did not win any of those games the year before. We were in probably 4 of them, and we didn't win any of the 4. So
and that was the difference between a playoff spot and a non-playoff year, right?
It was the difference between a 7-3, 8-2 year and a 4-6 year. So, this year, getting that big win week 1, at Tuscarora when they have, one of the best players, not in the county, definitely
in the state, right?
The state, Jordan Addison, and, we were able to contain him. He had 2 huge plays, but he's going to have big plays.
Yeah.
And we did, for the most part, contained him, and our kids, it was a great win for our program.
Right. You mentioned your running backs. Tell us about Josiah Jones, a 3-year starter in your program.
Right, Josiah. He's an outstanding player. He's got a great combination of size, speed, strength, agility. Plays on both sides of the ball. Great outside linebacker. He's having a big year for us, and he's just a great guy to coach all around.
He was a freshman on your 2016 team, which took Damascus to the wire in the 2A West final. Why did you keep him on the varsity team as a freshman?
Well, I mean, that year, we had an outstanding team. We were very good at a lot of spots, but we weren't very deep at running back.
Right.
So we brought him up, and he did a great job on special teams. Did a great job in some second half of some lopsided wins that we had. He also got to spend some time around some super senior guys who kind of taught him.
And that was part of your thinking, right, to get him around some really good players?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of taught him how to practice, how to be a varsity football player, and he's done a great job ever since.
He wasn't a running back coming into high school. Like he said, he became a running back when he joined your team.
Right. Definitely. I didn't really get to see him play youth football. He wasn't in.
He wasn't in Glade Valley. No,
he wasn't in a Walkersville youth program. So, we knew he was a running back and a skill. He actually a defensive back his first 2 years on varsity, but we knew he was a skilled player right away. I mean, he's just an incredible guy to coach.
Right, and he's gotten bigger. It seems too. Like every time he shows up at practice, it seems he's a little bit bigger than he was.
He's got. He does work hard in the weight room, but he's also very blessed. He is a big dude.
Right,
put together.
Right. You mentioned Nick Edwards too. He seems to personify a Walkersville football player, a Walkersville running back. Just that he gets those tough yards right in the middle of the field.
Absolutely. I mean, we're big fullback trap team, and he runs that play to perfection. He's very quick and fast. He runs it perfect. He knows exactly how to hit the hole. He's a tough kid. He's a great middle linebacker. He's been on varsity for 3 years, and he's just done a great job for us.
Josue Longo, you mentioned too. He's new to your team this season.
Right. Josue moved into the area, I would say late in the summer. Just really joined our program in August. He was a player on Quince Orchard's junior varsity last year, and his brother's also there at our school as a freshman, and he's brought some excitement to our backfield. He's a super kid, hard worker, runs the ball great, and he gets better each and every time he touches the ball.
How are you guys up front? Because all good Walkersville teams have a really good offensive line and a really good defensive line. How are you guys in those areas?
I feel like our offensive line is developing. It's led by Alex Rice. He's a 2-year starter. Hunter Palak's also a 2-year starter, as well as Ben Hartman. Those guys bring back experience from the year before. Tommy Jones has jumped in and done well. Mike Embry's been in there some. He got a little banged up. Dane Wallace was doing a great job at center. He got injured, and we just recently threw Andrew Brooks in there. He's been great. So I feel like our offensive line is good. Our defensive line is fast.
Do most of those guys do both, or do you have,
no, they don't.
different groups?
We try to keep our offensive line guys off of defense.
Right.
Tommy plays some defense, and and Andrew Brooks plays defense.
Right. I can't overlook your wide receivers too, and Brett Ahold and Jake Hess.
Right.
So.
And those guys have been great. They were returning starters from last year, explosive playmakers. I don't have their exact stats, but they both have had big games.
Jake, of course, as we mentioned, caught the winning touchdown pass against Tuscarora. So,
right.
And Brett, I think, had some big catches for you against Linganore too.
Right.
So.
Brett had some big catches against Linganore, also against Liberty and Seneca Valley.
Right. And if you look at Walkersville play, you might notice they have a pretty big and fast tight end too.
Absolutely. We got a sophomore named Jeremiah Franklin.
Yeah.
He's about 6'3", probably about 210. Tight end. He's caught numerous balls this year. He's done a great job. I mean, he was a receiver on JV last year, and we knew we had some senior guys coming back, and we wanted him on the field. He jumped in there and has done a great job at tight end, and he's a home run hitter there. So if the defenses aren't aware of where he is, he's going to get behind him and make a big play.
Right. Linebackers and secondary, where are you there?
I think we're doing good. Our secondary again, Jake Hess and Brett Ahalt played there last year. Malcolm Holman and Bryson Witcher are doing a great job at corner. Like we talked about, Josiah and Nick Edwards are anchoring the linebacking core along with Nate Wolf. Those guys, our defense has been really good. We gave up a couple plays against Linganore in the first half, but we held them 3 points in the second half.
Yeah, holding Linganore to 17 on the road's not a bad defensive effort at all.
Right.
So especially with how big they are and what their running game is going to be.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Right. We were talking about this just over the last couple of weeks, and I've talked about it with other coaches too. It doesn't seem like there's a team in Frederick County this year that's that far in front of the pack. It seems like everyone's good, but sort of right there with each other.
Right. The last few years, there's been a dominant team going back to Middletown, and then Walkersville, Oakdale, Linganore have all taken their turn being that dominant team. This year, it's pretty much up for grabs. I feel like anybody can beat anybody on any night.
Right.
It's just going to depend who's playing the best down the stretch.
Does that help you as a coach and give you confidence as a coach? Because you could preach to your kids like, hey, we can win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the kids, they look around and they know. I think they really believe that, we could win against anybody on any night. As long as we play well and, execute our game plan, I believe we could beat anybody.
Right. And now you guys are getting into the real teeth of your schedule here. I mean, you had Linganore last week, Catoctin this week.
5-0.
Catoctin's 5-0. Then you have an improved Frederick High team,
right.
And then you close the season with Oakdale and Middletown.
Right.
So you guys are right in the teeth of your
we've been
schedule.
telling them the last 5 games are no joke. We got to be ready each and every week. We got to improve each and every week because the other teams are working hard too, and it's going to be a battle down the stretch.
Is there some pressure off your shoulders because like 1 loss isn't going to kill you anymore, or 2 losses isn't going to kill you anymore in terms of the playoffs?
Right, it definitely is. I mean, probably we're 4-1. Probably 4 wins is going to get us in the playoffs.
Because what 8 of the 11 teams in the region make it?
Right,
Yeah.
and there's a couple teams with no wins. So
Right.
I mean, there's not as much pressure. The key thing is now to improve every week. It's almost now kind of like a basketball situation where you want to improve steadily as the season goes. You want to play your best football, weeks
Right.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I mean, because Oakdale won 9 games, I think, and we're on the road against you guys in the playoffs, in the first round of the playoffs. I think they were unbeaten last year and didn't play a home playoff game until the state semifinals. You've been on the other side of it because when you were battling with Middletown in 11 and 12, you had to go on the road and play those games.
Right,
in the playoffs, despite your fantastic record.
Yeah,
so.
we were 9-1 in 11 and 12 and played away. We were 10-0 and 17 and played the regional championship away.
Right.
We were 11-0.
So that just shows you how good this region has been over the years. That you could win just about all of your you could win all of your games like Oakdale did last year, like you guys did, and not even have home playoff games.
Right.
So,
yeah.
but it seems like that pressure has gone away. Like even if you have a couple of bad nights, it's not going to ruin.
No, it's
ruin
definitely
your season.
it's not the end of the world now. I mean,
Right.
it's not. You just have to, have that mentality. As we got to get. If you lose a game, forget about it. Get ready for the next week. And as long as you get hot at the right time, you got a shot.
Do you like that, or do you sort of like the edge, like 1 loss can really hurt us?
Well, I think it's a balance of both. I think this system is pretty new, and I think we'll see, over the next couple of years how it plays out.
Because at the same time, you don't want a bunch of like mediocre teams
Right,
in the playoffs.
you're right. It seems like at times 4 wasn't enough, but 8 out of 11 is a lot.
Right.
So I don't know if there's a balance in there that could
well,
be
you
reached.
could see like a 4-6 team or whatever. Like you could face them in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I mean, last year we were 4-6, and if you looked at how the standings broke down, we would have been 7th.
Right.
So we would have made it as a 7 seed.
Right. Does the seeding even matter? Because you get reseeded after the first round. I guess
the first 2 rounds.
The first 2 rounds. I guess it does, because you want the best possible path for those first 2 games.
Right. I mean, if you can get 1 or 2, you're going to be home, and you're also not going to have to. If say you're 2 in the region, you won't have to play the number 1 seed until down the road, because after the second round they redo it.
Right. Okay. Yes. So seeding is important, and you guys emphasize that with your kids.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So Catoctin this week. I mean, it's a game that you haven't played. I don't think for the last 2 seasons. I mean, you guys played every year until the last couple of seasons when the schedules got. Was it weird not playing them?
It was weird not playing Catoctin. I mean, we kind of looked at the history. Walkersville had played Catoctin for 40 consecutive years, and then the last 2 we didn't play. So we're looking forward to the matchup. They're a very good team. We've been studying them, all week in film. I mean, they're explosive. They got a great running back. Quarterback's very good. 2 outstanding receivers, and then a couple other guys that are still solid receivers. So, they bring a balanced attack and a fast, aggressive defense. It's going to be a tough game for us on Friday night.
What do you think makes the rivalry sort of a special thing for the kids?
I think it's proximity. I mean, we're not very far from each other.
Right.
Similar communities. Kids know each other, played each other in youth football all the years. So, just that those factors make it an exciting rivalry for high school.
All right. What are you most worried about when you look at Catoctin?
I think we're worried about, obviously, they're fast and aggressive on defense. They have a good offensive line. And again, their quarterback's good, their running back's good, their fullback runs trap well, he blocks well, and they've got some outstanding guys on the perimeter. So kind of worried about all that.
Right. What are the keys for your guys to win this game?
For us, we got to play great assignment football. We can't have dumb penalties, and when we have their opportunities to make big plays, we got to make them.
Right. Do you scoreboard watch? I mean, do you look at other games around the region and say this team did that? I mean, how closely do you follow that, or how locked in how locked in are you into just what you guys are doing week to week?
We're pretty locked in on what we're doing. Now, when we go back, in the coach's office after the games, some of the guys have it on their phone. So, I mean, we know who wins or loses. Right. Now, it's not something that we study or we really dwell on too much, but it's always fun to sit back in the office after the games and talk about who won or who lost that night.
But again, it's not as important, because before you guys were crunching points and bonus points and all that stuff.
Right.
And it matters, I guess, in terms of seeding again, but it's really not.
Right.
Really
we were definitely crunching them in, especially like 2017, us in Damascus. It came down to a couple percentage points of that game being at Walkersville or over there. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, is it fun to? It's got to be a lot of fun to play these big games.
Oh yeah, that's what we tell our kids. This is why you lift weights. This is why you practice hard. This is why you should play football. Nobody plays. This is why we coach. Nobody plays for easy wins. That's for us. That's just it's not that exciting. But these times when you got to play against a really good team, a well-coached team in front of a big crowd, that's what it's all about.
Right. What do you enjoy the most about the job? I mean, your kids have left high school. I mean, you don't have to be doing it anymore, but you still do. Just what do you enjoy the most about what you do?
I mean, I enjoy, first of all, I love the game of football, and I enjoy teaching that to our kids. I enjoy the camaraderie with the players and being around the players. I still, really love those guys, and that, especially that, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade age. I love the camaraderie with our coaches. We have an unbelievable coaching staff. And, for me, I want to coach as long as it's fun. And right now it's still a lot of fun.
I was going to say, you don't see yourself stepping down anytime soon, do you?
I don't. I mean, like I said, as long as I'm having fun and it's enjoyable, then I'm going to do it.
Was this always sort of your dream job? Did you see yourself sort of in this job wait long before you even got it? Like when you were at Urbana and you were at some other places, was your plan always to get to Walkersville?
I don't know if it was a plan. I mean, it's definitely my home school and my community. So when the opportunity presented itself, I definitely took it, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me and my family.
You got a chance to coach your kids.
Right. Coaching my kids, be at the school with them and their friends, and it was, and it still is a great experience. Just being a part of the community that I grew up in.
Right. What's the experience level on your team? Because high school football is a cyclical thing. You can go through some down years if you have a lot of inexperience. Just where are you guys positioned?
I feel like we have a lot of guys that started last year back. I think so they have experience, but what we were lacking is that big game experience. I think we got a lot of that feel last week against Linganore, even though they beat us. It was a hard-fought game. I feel like we grew up against them that night. Grew up. So each time we play in one of those atmospheres, I think we're going to get better and better.
Right. Hey, everyone's sort of bummed out about the TJ football situation. It's kind of sad to see a proud program like that going through a tough time. Just how do you sort of look at that situation? And I mean, because you guys lost a game. I mean, now you're down to 8 games. Just what are your thoughts on that situation?
First of all, we feel terrible for the TJ community, their coaches. They've got great. Bobby Humphreys is a great guy. It's tough for their community, their school, their players. We wish them the best of luck, and hopefully they can get that thing rolling again next year. And it's tough on everybody. It's tough, for our kids to lose a game. I mean, even though it's way tougher on them, it's bad for us.
We know what you're saying. Yeah,
it's bad for everybody. So
right, because football is such a like a lot of people have said, it's such a community event, and when you don't have those games, it's really
right.
You're affecting far more than just what happens on the field.
A great football season can really bring a community together. So yeah, they're missing out on that, and we wish them nothing but the best of luck, and hopefully they can get that thing rolling again next year.
In previous conversations with you said you're like, we'll see on the 9-game schedule. Do you feel pretty good about it so far, or?
Yeah, I think the book is still out a little bit. Especially now. If you lose a game, now you're down to 8. I mean, those guys. You put a lot of work into the weight room and all that kind of stuff throughout the year, 7-on-7, summer workouts. Now we only get 8 regular season games.
Yeah, it feels like it really shortens the season, doesn't it?
It shortens it up. Yeah, it shortens it a bunch. So, hopefully we can get a good couple playoff games in and kind of stretch it out so the kids get more games. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. A couple times there's been some pretty big blowouts, 1 versus 4s. Now you're going to get 1 versus 8.
Right.
So I think that's going to be interesting.
Right. It always seems from our perspective that the season moves really, really fast. I mean, it's week 6 already, and here we are into October. Does it feel that way for you, or it's like being in the day-to-day side of it? Does it move a little slower?
It's a little bit of both. I think when you look back, like when we played Tuscarora, I mean, it seemed like that was a long time ago. Like the seasons are the weeks roll, but when you're in the day to day, kind of school, practice, preparation, all that kind of stuff, it might slow down a little bit.
All right. Is every day really different, or do you try and keep every day the same?
We try to keep every day the same. I mean, every Monday for us is basically the same. Every Tuesday is the same. Every Wednesday is the same. Every Thursday is the same. Because I really feel like football teams do better in routine. Now this week was different because there was no school on a Wednesday, 2 hour early on a Tuesday, so it's been a little different. But I like to keep our players in as much routine as possible.
Right. Do you worry about that heading into a big game like this?
I worry about it a little bit. Yeah, I'm glad
just because the routine's disrupted.
Right. It is disrupted. So I'm glad that we're getting back to school tomorrow. Tomorrow's practice will be just like last Thursday's practice, and that'll be good for us.
Yeah, back to your normal week.
Back to our normal
starting
week.
Tomorrow. Last week you had a big game, but it was at Linganore. This week's game is at
home.
At your place. So what's the buzz like in the community this week?
It's big. It's our homecoming. So there's a lot of excitement for that. There's a parade. One great thing about Walkersville, it's an actual town with one high school, and so they do a lot of neat things. There'll be a parade. Little parade every time for homecoming. We'll have fireworks at our game. The fire trucks will be there. So it'll be very exciting. Wear black on black uniforms, which we do for every homecoming. So it'll be.
You do why
like,
why the black on
it's just,
black?
I mean, we came up with that a couple years ago, and the kids really like it. It's just I guess we took it off from the colleges as our alternate uniform game. So
did you have one uniform when you were playing at Walkersville? Did you even have a choice for another uniform?
No, there was no choice. Now, I mean, I was talking to another coach. It's almost like, we have all these uniform combinations now and different things. It helps build your program. Kids nowadays like that kind of stuff, and it draws interest to your program. And our numbers are better now than they've ever been.
But you have to budget for that stuff too, right? Don't you have to buy all those extra uniforms?
Yeah, we got a budget for it, and it helps over. To be at the same place now for 10 years as the head coach, it helps, budget money over those years. And we have some great fundraisers, and the community supports us.
You guys do a golf tournament, right?
We do a really successful golf tournament in June, and then we do we sell the fundraiser cards, and we do really well with that. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, we look forward to this game. It should be competitive and should be very good. So
yeah, absolutely.
Joe, we appreciate you coming in, and best of luck the rest of the way here.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
When we come back here on the Final Score podcast, we will swing around the county sports scene with FNP sports writer Joe Ferraro. Stay with us. Back here on the Final Score podcast, and joining me in studio is FNP sports writer Joe Ferraro. And Joe, we just talking with Coach Joe Polison here on the podcast, and it's hard to believe the season is already past the midway point. Here we're getting ready for week 6 all of a sudden.
Yeah. I don't know, just a lot of good weather. Thankfully, it's made it go by really fast. That's for sure. But now you got a little crispness in the air. But yeah. We'll see how things go. A lot of big games coming up this week.
Yeah, no doubt. And before I ask you about the Walkersville Catoctin game, I wanted to swing a little bit around the football scene with you. And last week you saw Urbana beat Tuscarora. What were your impressions of each of those teams?
Yeah, Urbana, boy, very. It's been a while since I'd seen Eric Kohler play, but boy, he can beat you in several different ways. Catching the ball, running the ball. He's even when they go empty backfield, he does an admirable job blocking there. So he's quite the versatile weapon, and just that running attack with with the counters they run with not just Eric Kohler but guys like Mikey Gonzalez. They're really effective running those plays. I mean, they run them over and over again, and everybody knows it's coming. But when you have the line playing as well as it's playing, it doesn't matter. The execution, if it's there, they're going to succeed. Tuscarora, offensively also very very impressive. Jordan Addison is Jordan Addison. Saw him play quite a bit last year as well, running out of the Wildcats sets as his usual versatile self. But also Nassim Pacheco at quarterback, it gives him another multi threat athlete. So two explosive offenses. It's a lot of fun to watch.
With Kohler, he's a Division I lacrosse recruit. He's that good in lacrosse. But how do you think this football season is sort of factoring into his decision for college?
You know what? I actually asked him about that, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to keep all options open. Football and lacrosse. I mean, if I were to take a guess, I think he'll probably go the lacrosse route, but
the ceiling's a little higher there, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's just the total package there. Offensively, defensively. So he's got a lot of skills on a very good boys lacrosse team. So yeah. I mean, if I were to guess, he would go with lacrosse. But boy, he's a heck of a football player too.
Brad Wilson, he credited the lacrosse team at Urbana for sort of changing the culture of the football program. Because Urbana had been really struggling, but now a lot of the lacrosse players who know how to win, who play at a very high level, they've come over and really infuse a lot of that belief into the football program. And I, for one, put a lot of stock in that, and it seems to be rubbing off on the football team, the success of the boys lacrosse program.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. The winning culture. It definitely carries over. That's for sure. Just instilling the right habits,
confidence,
confidence, all those intangibles. Very important. I fully agree.
Right. You've seen Walkersville
I have.
this season. What were your impressions of Walkersville?
Just the amount of the many options they have at running back. I mean, geez, nobody, they never have to worry about fatigue. You got guys like Josiah Jones and Nick Edwards who are in that backfield, but they play on both sides of the ball. And so when you got guys like Josue Longa and then Mark Merica coming in and spelling those guys that I mentioned at running back, and just that depth, I mean, whoever they put back there, does the job. And, I think that, that offensive line that was a part of those championship teams of the past, it's really coming together and allowing for them to do that, to have that success on the ground.
A couple of nice receivers too, and Jake Hess and Brett Ahalt too.
Yep.
So they're capable of making. They're not a passing team or a passing offense per se, but it seems like they're capable of making the pass when they have to make it with Stroka and those receivers.
Yeah, and it's not going to be get the ball down the field, but those nice safe intermediate routes. Those guys are very dependable. Those 10 to 15 yard posts and hooks and slants. I mean they're really efficient with that passing game.
It seems like in a team like Catoctin, Walkersville is going to face a team that's a lot like them. I mean, that's predicated an offense that's predicated on running the ball. They have passing ability. Catoctin's got some really nice receivers too. And Travis Fields, Mason Clark is coming back into the mix. You have Eli Fry, but it all starts with the running game with Carson Sakari and Jake Baker. So both teams are good along the line. So it seems like you have two teams here that are sort of mirror images of each other in a lot of ways.
Yeah, offensively, definitely. Now, from what and I did see Catoctin play last year. It seems like it's same old explosive offense. I think the big test is how well is Catoctin's defense going to play? That's going to be the big factor. With Walkersville and the offense they have, it may be the best test that that defense has had this year. And defensively for Walkersville, in the past, you had your 2 or 3 superstars that made all the plays. Now you can say that they have 6, 7 guys pursuing and swarming to the football. It's going to be a tough defense to crack. I mean, Linganore only scored 17 points against them, so we'll see how Catoctin can do against that Walkersville defense.
It should be a fascinating matchup, and Catoctin, of course, has Jacob McElvain on their defensive line, which should help them against that Walkersville running game. So I think it'll be a very competitive game that could go either way.
Yep.
So you and I were talking in the office just a night or so ago. The all-area scene at running back is going to be pretty crowded. When you consider you have Xander McClure at Linganore, who's off to a great start. You have Carson Sakari, who basically has 1,000 all-purpose yards and
Eric Kohler
and 17 touchdowns, just past basically at the halfway point of the season. And then you have Eric Kohler, who's lighting it up for Urbana. I mean, those three, and then you have some other decent backs elsewhere in the county too. So running back seems to be the deepest position across the board in the county so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Your receivers. A ton of decent receivers out there. But it seems to be the year of the running back. This year.
I think you have one really really good receiver in Jordan Addison and some good ones behind him, but running back, it seems like you could go any number of ways when you ask who's the best running back in the county.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and Walkersville has several capable ones. I mean, if they had to lean on one, one of those four that they give the ball to could put up the same kind of numbers. Josh Pratt over at Brunswick has had a pretty good year as well. Even at Frederick, Chris Matevia, I saw him have a really good game earlier this year. So yeah, a lot of good running backs definitely in the county.
Lincoln so far has three really good wins. They have wins over Middletown, Oakdale now, and Walkersville. They have an interesting game this week against the New Jersey State champion, Penns Grove. A very highly regarded team. They're a smaller school though, so I'm not sure what sort of level of competition they typically face. But they could give Lincoln a real battle. I'm interested to see that game too. Of course, you have the Middletown Oakdale game.
Yep.
That seemingly could go either way and should be fairly competitive. So it feels like we're really getting into the teeth of the football season here. And,
Certainly.
And you have some really important games this week with games that you're not sure about the outcome because it doesn't seem like, unlike previous seasons here in Frederick County,
right.
We don't have a team that's that far ahead of the pack, it seems.
No. A lot of toss-up games. Yeah, I mean, you top 4 or 5 teams if you have them, face each other. You can't say.
Night, yeah.
It depends on that night. One team will have commit a costly turnover or two, and that's the difference in the game. That doesn't mean that team that lost is that much far beneath the team that won.
You have to say Lincoln is a little bit out in front of the pack just because of the nature of their wins and who they've played so far. Still have upcoming games with Urbana. I'm interested to see Urbana take them on and see if they could challenge the Lincoln pass defense a little bit. And then Lincoln still has a game to play against Tuscarora coming up too, and that should be interesting. So, yeah, you have a lot of good games still to play this season, and pretty. It's interesting though, and I was talking about this with Coach Polis too. There's not as much pressure to win them, just because most teams are going to make the playoffs. Like one loss isn't going to wreck your season like it has for teams in the past. 1 or 2 losses. So.
Yeah, and also, you could say that all these teams. I've actually talked to a couple of athletes this year who have said everybody in the county lost a lot. So there's no pressure on one team that has 9 key returning starters, and they're expected to win as maybe some of those stronger Lincoln or Walkersville teams in the past where you knew they were going to go deep. Now you got a bunch of teams that have a lot of new blood, and so they're the pressure is not as much, definitely.
Right. And we'll see how far they go in the playoffs. Damascus moved to 3A, so
yep.
That's a team that Lincoln would have to contend with this season as they move through the state playoffs. It'll depend on the round though, because if they each get through their first 2 rounds, they'll be reseeded. So
yep.
So that's an interesting twist with the playoffs. On the girls' soccer scene, it looks like Urbana's the team to beat. They had a good win over Middletown last week. I think Middletown's right there with them. It was a 1-0 game. So Middletown and Urbana seems to be the team to beat on the girls' side, followed by Middletown, and then behind them you probably have teams like TJ and Walkersville and even maybe Tuscarora. Field hockey Oakdale seems to be really strong this season. They've already clinched a spot in the CMC championship game. Volleyball, Urbana is going to make a run in the state title. It seems that they're very strong, bring most of their team back from a squad that reached the state final last year, and then we come to your area of expertise, which is boys soccer, and I guess Oakdale looks to be the team to beat in the CMC. So
yeah, I
far.
think so. And you mentioned volleyball. I've seen a couple of those teams play. So Oakdale and Tuscarora also very very good teams. It just depends on who shows up to play. So you're gonna have Urbana in 4A. You're going to have Tuscarora in 3A and Oakdale in 2A.
Should mention Urbana in field hockey too. Their field hockey.
Urbana field hockey
yeah.
as well. Yep. So yeah, those three teams. Boy, I mean, I could see any of those three in volleyball going very far. And then as you said, the boys soccer. Yeah, Oakdale with the weapons they have on offense, Riley Dager, Griffin Vinyl, among others, and then their usual strong defense. Yeah, I think they're by far the class of the county. But Middletown and Walkersville actually played Oakdale to 2 ties this year. So they're also in the mix along with TJ. TJ played Oakdale tough. I believe it was a 3-2 game. But Oakdale with the number of returning players, the experience, the usual strong defense, I think is a little bit ahead of everybody else.
Who are they likely to play in the CMC championship game?
Well, that's going to be actually a big match tomorrow. Tuscarora and TJ are going to be playing each other, and that game may very well decide who comes out of the Spires division. So yeah, Tuscarora, the past couple of years they've been right around 500, but now they've started to make some strides and come on strong. So that game tomorrow may very well just go along the way as far as who Oakdale plays.
Maybe it's just me, but it seems like there's been an abundance of ties in soccer this year.
I've covered 2 of them this year. I think I'd covered just 1 in my previous 5 years.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, did you do a scoreless tie yet? Was a scoreless tie one of your games? Or
I can't remember. I can't remember. I know. Let's see. I know I had a 1-1 tie. I can't remember the other one. It may have been a scoreless tie. No, I think it was 2 1-1 ties, actually.
Well, I know I've covered a scoreless tie this year, and there have been a couple others that have been close to that. So I don't know if it's just the defenses are really strong this year and tough to crack if we're missing a bit of a scoring touch this year, or the teams are just that evenly matched. It's hard to explain, but it seems like ties are. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just another normal year. But it seems like ties are on the increase this year for soccer.
Yeah, it could be a combination of the two. In terms of prolific scorers, you have a few, but maybe it's not as many as we've had in the past. But that finishing touch is definitely a big part of it. The 2 I've covered, a lot of. A lot of missed scoring opportunities. Just can't get it in the back of the net.
Right. So here we are. It's already October 10th, just about 9th, 10th, and the playoffs are less than a month away.
Right.
And we'll be talking about playoff season and who's the contender to win a state title pretty soon too. So.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yep. Joe, as always, thanks for coming in, and my thanks to Graham Cullen for producing, and all of you for tuning in every week and listening here on the Final Score. I'm Greg Swatek, and we'll see you back here next week with another episode.